Alright, welcome to another video, and before we get started I'd like to take a quick minute to thank all the Patreon supporters and YouTube channel members whose names you see scrolling across the screen right now. They make this financially possible, and without you I probably wouldn't be here making videos, so thank you. So today we're going to be taking a look at Walksnail's newest video transmitter from MidgeFPV. That is the V2 dual antenna version, which is basically an update on the V2. They've added the second antenna at the request of the community, is from my understanding. There seemed to be a general consensus that the single antenna transmitters didn't get quite as much range or consistent performance as the V2 transmitters, the earlier version, the V1s. I had kind of seen that to a degree myself. I always had good, consistent, solid performance with the V1s, and with the single antenna V2s, sometimes I had a little bit better range than other days. It's not that it didn't perform well, it just wasn't as consistent. So here we have a V2 with dual antennas now, and hopefully what I was looking forward to was getting the full V2, the benefits from the V2 being the 32 gigabytes of storage and the cleaner performance as far as GPS receivers go. The earlier V1s are known to emit noise that kind of reduces the sensitivity of your GPS, makes it harder to get a lock, and takes a little bit longer to get a good solid lock before you can take off and things like that. But the V2 solved that problem. They're not noisy on GPS at all, from my understanding. I've personally not had an issue with them, and I think everyone else kind of agrees to an extent. But anyway, what we have here is the V2 with dual antennas, and over the past week or so I've flown almost every day. I flew about 5 days in a row. I might have skipped one day in there somewhere, but I pretty much flew every chance I had, and some days were multiple flights, and I've flown it like 6 or 7 times. And the reason for doing that, when I get a new product like this, I'll take it, install it, verify that everything works, get a couple of flights, get some footage, and kind of edit that and put that out there. And I expected to do the same with this one and have the video out like a week ago. But that wasn't the case this time. When I flew it, I ran into, I don't want to call it necessarily a problem, it just didn't quite meet those expectations. So I spent a fair bit of time flying, changing antennas, asking for feedback from Walksnail themselves. I got in touch with one of the main developers. He kind of went over some of my footage. We did some debug info. He looked through it, and we basically can't find a reason for what I'm seeing is shorter range. I can't quite fly as far out with this transmitter as I can with the dual antenna V1. And it's not a drastic difference. With the dual antenna V1 transmitter, I was able to consistently fly out to around 5 miles. And usually what I would do, I would fly out to the river, and I hit the river at about 4 miles, and then 5 miles puts me a little bit past the river, obviously, and I kind of fly upstream a little bit and turn around and come back. And I'm able to explore around the river a little bit out there in that area between 4 and 5 miles. And with the V2 dual antenna transmitter, it's pretty much I'm hitting a wall at about 4 miles is where I lose video. Sometimes the transmitter disconnects, but I'm always down in single digits for the bit rate. And like I said, often I'll see the video transmitter disconnect, and then once I turn around and come back, it'll reconnect. I'm basically losing video at 4 miles. It's kind of my hard limit what I've been able to get with it. So just to try to troubleshoot and rule out any issues, like I said, I started out with the 5.8 gigahertz hammer antennas from HGLRC that were already on the airplane that I used with the original V1 that was in it. So I pretty much just swapped the camera and the transmitter and everything else on board the airplane, which I'm doing all this on the Swordfish, by the way. But everything else involved was all the same power, the same cables, and same layout in the airplane. Nothing else changed initially. And then I saw that 4 mile range where actually I was hitting around 3.6, 3.7 or so is where I was kind of hitting my limit. So then I replaced it. I put the stock antennas on just to see if maybe my antennas were bad or something. They didn't like this transmitter. And another reason, I'd never actually flown the stock antennas on the Walksnail system. But I put these on and actually didn't see much difference. Maybe a slight improvement, which is a little bit of a surprise. But then I went back to the hammer antennas after that, and I kind of saw the same range. That slight improvement was still there, so that could have just been a difference in the weather or humidity, whatever the environment from day to day. But basically, I didn't see any difference. I ran the stock antennas in the 45-degree V format, just like I've been doing with the hammers. And then it was also suggested that maybe I try both antennas vertical. Maybe it's not like a diversity thing. Maybe they're actually pairing up both antennas and they're splitting the workload between the two. So you need a good signal on both all the time. So I bent those little tubes, heat them up, and bent the plastic where I just kind of turned them vertical for a couple of flights and didn't see any real change there. It seemed to be a little bit more stable on the way out, but you kind of lost the video worse during the turn. So, I mean, I guess that's kind of to be expected. Kind of makes sense if you really think about it. But no improvement on range or anything like that. So I went back to those hammer antennas later and did some more flying, and just it's consistent. It's very consistent, the results I'm getting. It's just I'm not quite able to make that same distance that I was getting with the older transmitter. And I do want to point out that all of this testing is being done under the 400 feet altitude limit, according to the rules and regulations and everything. I try to play it by the book and play it safe and try not to break the rules there. But obviously, if we fly with more altitude, we're going to get a lot more range than this. But I do all my flights out here at 400 feet over this rural area where there's no real danger of damaging anything on the ground, and I stay below 400 feet to be safe and within the rules. So I just want to point that out. You're probably going to be able to get more range than this if you're flying in an area that allows you to fly with more altitude, or if your environment, if you're taking off from hilltop or something like that. But that's what we have. And like I said, it's not a bad result. It just seems to be consistently a little bit worse than I was getting with the original V1 dual antennas. And the V2 on a bad day would get a little bit less than this. On a good day, I'd be able to make the 5 mile mark point out there. So I would say this is kind of in the range comparable to the single antenna V2, but just more consistent about it. And I do still see the clean GPS performance, no issue there. I'm getting good, solid, fast, consistent lock every time. And yeah, so I guess we got, there's no downsides to this one versus the single antenna V2, but I don't really see the improvement that I was looking for. It's not what I was hoping. You're just carrying 2 antennas to do it. Now, that brings up a point too. If you're doing a different type of flying, not just flat out long range like this, flying straight and level, if you're doing more kind of bashing around, flying behind obstacles and doing aerobatics and things where your aircraft is flipping around and all, and you may benefit from having that second antenna so that you can keep them like I've been using them in the V format here, so that when your aircraft changes orientation, there's chances are you're always going to have one that's in a good orientation relative to your receiver antennas. Like basically the benefits of a diversity system. Now, like I said, it's still not clear to me how this system is working. I don't know if you're going to get more benefit treating it like a diversity system, or if you'll have more benefit with both antennas vertical and splitting the workload. I'm not sure what they're doing with the antennas, how they're utilizing them, but I didn't see a lot of difference either way. So I guess take it for what it is. It's not super informative, and we didn't hit the nail on the head trying to figure this stuff out, but that's what I have, and that's what I have to show you. So hopefully it's been enjoyable and informative to some degree. I'll leave you with a little bit of footage. This was just some kind of low light flying. Still the same pro camera that you could get before. There's no changes to the camera. But I do want to point out that I offer this with another standard camera as well, the standard V2 camera that also has the gyro for gyro flow, because obviously the pro camera does support gyro flow. But yeah, both of the cameras they offer it with, you can get it standard or the pro camera, which both do support gyro flow from what I understand. I'll have to double check on that. I'll probably put a note up if that's incorrect, but I do believe that's right. But yeah, I guess I just want to thank Caddx for sending me this transmitter and camera to try out. And I'll probably leave it in the Swordfish for a while, and at least till I can get some more flying in. And eventually I want to go back to the V1 in here just to compare to see if that added range comes back, just to rule out any differences external, like in the environment, humidity, whatever. Because all those flights I was doing earlier was kind of in the summer months, and now we're getting into the fall and winter months. Maybe it's just a difference in the weather. I don't know. It's kind of inconclusive. But I'm kind of out of time, and you can see here one of the flights when I was actually flying, I was dealing with like a 15 to 20 mile an hour crosswind on one of the flights out. It's really not a good day to fly, but I really wanted to get that last flight in just to fly it, to check some things, and kind of out of flying time, out of weather and out of time to be able to fly. So I decided to go ahead and make the video now, and I don't know, I guess thank you for watching it. Thank you to Caddx for sending me the gear to try out and review and test, and I think we should see some more stuff coming up. I don't want to spill the beans yet, but we are working on some more firmware testing and things like that in the little private group that I'm part of that I mentioned previously. And I think we should see some exciting updates coming from Caddx. So stay tuned for that. Thank you for watching this one, and I will see you all in the next video.